Hey folks, welcome back. You've waited long enough. You kept telling yourself she just needs time, that maybe if you give her space, she'll come around, that one day she'll remember what you had and realize what she lost. But here's the truth most men don't want to face. She's not coming back. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Maybe not ever. And yeah, I know that hurts. I know it's not the answer you were hoping to hear. But deep down, you've known this for a while. You just haven't admitted it to yourself. Because admitting it means letting go. And letting go feels like death when your identity is still tied to the version of you that needed her to stay. But here's what you haven't realized yet. Her leaving wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of a rebuild. You didn't lose when she walked away. You started to win the moment you stopped trying to pull her back. That silence you hate, that space you're avoiding, that pain that's been chewing at your chest in the middle of the night, that's not weakness. That's the door to your next level. And the only reason it feels so heavy right now is because you've been resisting the lesson it came to teach you. Most men break in this moment. They text her. They chase. They scroll old photos. They bargain with the past. But the man who learns to sit in the fire without flinching, who doesn't beg for closure, who doesn't outsource his healing, that man doesn't just survive. He transforms. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." You keep focusing on her decision, her actions, her distance, but none of that belongs to you anymore. What does? Your focus, your rebuild, your ability to stand up alone without needing anyone to rescue you from your reflection. Because let's be real, you didn't want her back. You wanted to feel like you mattered again. But you do, just not in the way you thought. Not by being chosen, not by being missed, but by becoming the man who doesn't wait to be seen to walk in his value. This isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about learning that the very thing you thought broke you is what's about to rebuild you from the ground up. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly why her absence is the greatest gift you didn't know you needed. Why the pain you feel is a signal. Why the silence you fear is your mirror. And why the longer you wait for her, the further you drift from yourself. This is about taking your power back, not by getting her to return, but by becoming someone she can no longer reach. You didn't lose a woman. You lost a distraction. And what you're about to gain is you. Let's get started. Number 1, pain is your catalyst. Let's start with the part no one wants to talk about. The pain. Yeah, that raw, silent, aching pain that sits in your chest when you wake up and she's not there. When you check your phone and there's still nothing. When every part of you wants to believe she'll reach out, but deep down, you know she won't. You feel hollow, angry, not because she left, but because she meant more than you expected her to. And now, you don't know what to do with that weight. Here's the truth. This is the moment where most men break. They go back. They beg. They try to fix what's already gone. Not because they believe it will work, but because they want relief from this feeling. But let me tell you something no one ever told me when I was in that same exact spot. This pain you're feeling right now is your door, not your curse. Not your punishment. Your entry point into something most men never access. Self-respect, depth, strength that doesn't come from pretending, but from burning and surviving. See, you think you're in hell because you lost her, but you didn't lose her. You lost your illusion of control. You lost the fantasy that someone else was going to validate you forever. And as brutal as it feels, that's the exact pain that wakes a man up. This is what most people miss. Pain isn't the enemy. Attachment is. The pain only hurts this much because you anchored your identity to her attention. You made her affection the mirror that told you who you were. So when she walked away, the mirror shattered. And now you're standing there, cut, bleeding, confused. Not because she broke you, but because you never built yourself in the first place. But this, right now, this is the chance you never thought you'd get. To start again. For real. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It's easy to quote that when things are smooth, but when your heart feels like it's been ripped out and no one's coming to fix it, that's when the Stoic path begins. You don't escape pain, you face it. You sit with it. You let it strip away everything that was weak, needy, performative, and you start asking better questions. Not, how do I get her back? But, why did I let myself become a man who needed her to feel whole? Because if you can answer that, you can change everything. Most men will numb this pain with distractions. New women, nights out, gym obsession. They'll say, "I'm healing," but they're not. They're avoiding, and what you avoid controls you, but not you. Because you're here, watching this. You didn't click on a "get her back fast" video. You clicked on one that said, "She's not coming back." And somewhere inside, you're ready to stop running from that. You're ready to let this pain become your catalyst, not your cage. That means no more victim mindset. No more romanticizing what's already over. No more chasing something that clearly chose to leave. Instead, you use this. You let it fuel your standards. You let it sharpen your mind. You let it break everything that was never strong enough to begin with. Because when a man stops fearing pain, when he starts using it, he becomes untouchable. So if you're sitting there, heart heavy, unsure if you'll ever feel okay again, let me tell you something, man to man. You're not dying. You're waking up. And if that hits something deep, if you know this moment is bigger than the heartbreak, drop this in the comments. Pain woke me up. I won't waste it. And if you're done running and ready to rebuild, to take this pain and forge something unshakable, subscribe now. This space isn't for men chasing comfort. It's for men using fire to forge focus. And next, we talk about what that fire becomes when you stop clinging. Detachment. Real, grounded, masculine detachment. Let's move. Number 2, detachment is power. Let's get one thing straight. You don't need her back. You need your center back. The pain woke you up, yeah. But the only way to stay awake is by detaching. From her, from the outcome, from the story you keep replaying in your head. Because here's the truth most men never learn. The moment you stop needing anything from her is the moment you reclaim your power. Detachment isn't about not caring. It's not about being cold or emotionally dead. It's about not letting your sense of identity get pulled by every emotional wave that hits you. She posts something that looks like she's happy without you. You stay centered. She doesn't respond to your silence the way you hoped. Still centered. You see her moving on, maybe even with someone else. You don't spiral. You observe. You move with control. Because your value never depended on her response. It only looked that way when you were still attached. And this is where most men get stuck. They think being emotionally available means constantly reacting. But real masculinity is responsive, not reactive. When you detach, you're not ignoring reality. You're refusing to let it control your behavior. That's a very different kind of strength. Marcus Aurelius said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." That's detachment in action. You choose to remove the hooks from your heart. You choose to stop investing energy in a story that's already over. You choose to hold yourself steady while the storm passes. Because here's the thing, When you're still attached to her, you flinch at every movement. You read into everything she does. You become addicted to signals that mean nothing. But when you detach, you create space. And that space, that's where clarity happens. That's where real rebuilding begins. That's when you stop reacting like a boy who lost his favorite toy and start responding like a man who finally values his own energy. And you know what's wild? The moment you reach that state, where your silence isn't a tactic, but a reflection of peace, she feels it. She senses the shift. The game doesn't work on you anymore, because the version of you she thought she could control, gone. She can't pull you with a post. She can't shake you with a delay. She can't bait you with breadcrumbs. You're no longer playing the role of the emotionally available doormat. You've become something else. Grounded. Still. Unreachable. And that doesn't just change how she sees you. It changes how you see you. You start noticing how much energy you used to waste on managing perception, proving your worth, chasing validation. You realize how little of that effort was ever returned, and slowly, detachment stops being a mindset and becomes your default operating system. You don't detach to punish her. You detach to protect you. You stop giving 100% to someone who gave you 40. You stop trying to explain yourself to someone who wasn't even listening. You stop making space for people who only show up when they feel you slipping away. That's the quiet revolution that changes everything. You walk into rooms differently. You don't need to prove. You don't need to please. You don't need to perform. Because when you're detached from outcome, your presence becomes undeniable. You stop chasing. You start attracting. And not because of a trick, but because your center no longer shifts for anyone. So if you're sitting there wondering, how do I stop hurting? This is your answer. Detach. Not because you don't feel, but because you finally understand that feelings aren't facts, and your future doesn't need her participation to be powerful. If that clicks with you, if you feel yourself ready to stop clinging, drop this in the comments. I choose calm. I choose control. I detach. And if you're building the kind of inner strength that can't be shaken by silence or rejection, subscribe now. Because this isn't a heartbreak recovery channel. It's a transformation zone. Next up, you're waiting for closure. But what if I told you you don't need it? Let's talk. Number 3, she doesn't owe you closure. Let's talk about one of the hardest pills to swallow. You're not getting closure. And guess what? She doesn't owe it to you. I know that stings. You want answers. You want clarity. You want her to sit down, look you in the eyes, and explain why she left. What changed? What went wrong? What you did or didn't do? You want a clean exit. Something neat. Something fair. But that's not how real life works. People don't always leave cleanly. Sometimes they disappear. Sometimes they lie. Sometimes they ghost without a word and go post a photo with someone new 2 days later. And it leaves you there, scrambling for meaning, trying to fill in the blanks, trying to read between the silence. But here's the truth you need to hear. Closure isn't something she gives you. It's something you give yourself. Waiting on her to explain herself is just another form of emotional dependency. It's hoping that the person who left you in pieces is somehow going to be the one to help you put yourself back together. That's not her job. That's your responsibility. Marcus Aurelius said, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." That's the Stoic principle right there. It's not the ending that hurts. It's the story you're still writing in your head after it's over. You keep replaying the last message, reading it 20 different ways, asking your friends, do you think she meant it when she said, but all of that? That's you trying to make chaos make sense. Here's the reframe that will set you free. Her silence is your closure. Let me say that again. Her silence is your closure. You don't need a final conversation. You don't need her to admit she messed up. You don't need her to say, "I'm sorry." Because even if she did, would it really fix anything? What most guys want isn't closure. It's comfort. They want to feel like they still mattered, like the love was real, like they weren't wasting their time. But if you're strong enough to stop seeking comfort from the person who caused the wound, you win. That's when you reclaim full authority over your mind. You no longer let someone else's avoidance become your obsession. You no longer let someone's lack of communication write the narrative of your identity. Instead, you decide, she left. That's all I need to know. And from that space, you move. Not because you don't feel, but because you refuse to be held hostage by unfinished conversations with people who had no problem leaving you behind. There's a man I once coached who had been waiting 2 years, for a woman to explain why she cut him off. You know what finally freed him? Not getting the answer, but realizing he didn't need one. He looked at the situation and said, "I showed up with real love, real energy." If that wasn't enough for her, that's not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of what she was ready for. Boom. Closure. Without contact. That's when the weight lifts. That's when your mind clears. That's when the emotional fog burns off. Because now, you're no longer waiting on someone who already made their decision. You're walking forward, clear, centered. You're no longer trapped in the maze of why. You're grounded in the truth of what is. And that, my friend, is power. That's presence. That's Stoicism in motion. So if you're still stuck waiting for that perfect goodbye moment, stop. Give yourself the peace she never handed you. Let her silence be the final sentence. Let your healing be the closing chapter. And if that clicks, if you feel something shift in your chest, drop this in the comments. Her silence was enough. I've moved on, and if you're building the kind of strength that doesn't beg for permission to let go, hit that subscribe button, because this journey isn't about getting answers. It's about becoming a man who no longer needs them. Number 4, you're not here to be chosen, you choose. Let me say something that might shake a few beliefs you've been carrying for years. You are not here to be chosen. You are not some option on someone else's list. You're the one who chooses. But no one told you that, right? Since you were young, the message was always the same. Find a good woman. Make her like you. Be chosen. Your whole self-worth was wrapped up in being picked. So what did you do? You tried to be the right kind of guy. The guy who listens. The guy who's available. The guy who gives and waits for her to say, "You're the one." But here's the truth most men never realize until it's too late. When you live to be chosen, you're not leading. You're waiting. Waiting to be validated. Waiting to be accepted. Waiting to be told, "You're finally enough." That's not power. That's permission seeking. And women feel that energy a mile away. You want to know why she lost interest? Why she backed off? Why she stopped texting or responding with real emotion? It's not because you weren't good enough. It's because you stopped choosing. You stopped showing up like a man with standards. You stopped leading. You let her decide everything while you sat quietly, hoping for approval. And let me tell you what that feels like to a woman. It feels like pressure. It feels like dead weight. It feels like you're asking her to carry the emotional burden of the relationship while you wait to be picked like a child at recess. But you're not a child anymore. You're a man, and a man chooses. Not from desperation, not to prove his worth, but from alignment with himself. That means you don't chase a woman who disrespects you. You don't beg to stay in a space where your presence is treated like a backup plan. You don't ask, "Am I enough?" You walk in knowing that you are, and you let her show whether or not she's capable of rising to meet that. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man should be upright, not kept upright." You don't need a woman to recognize your value before you act like you have it. You act like it regardless. Because real confidence isn't about being validated, it's about being undeniable. You don't need to convince her of anything. You just need to stay so locked in on your own path, your own vision, your own code of conduct, that if she fits, great. If not, you keep moving. You know what happens when you start choosing instead of waiting? You stop overthinking. You stop trying to decode her mixed signals. You stop sitting in anxiety wondering if you'll ever be enough, because now it's reversed. Now the question isn't, does she want me? It's, does she align with the life I'm building? And that shift, that's where everything changes. Because once a woman feels that you're not hoping to be picked anymore, that you're capable of walking away without flinching, she starts to feel your gravity. You stop being one of many. You become the exception. But here's the part most guys miss. That shift doesn't happen from pretending. You can't fake alpha. You can't fake groundedness. You can't fake choosing while secretly still hoping to be rescued by her attention. This shift only happens when you actually decide, I'm done trying to be chosen. I know who I am now, and I move like it. That's when your posture changes, your eyes change, your energy changes. Not because you're trying harder, but because you finally remembered you were never meant to sit and wait. You were born to lead. If that hits home, if you've ever felt that shift from being chosen to choosing, drop this in the comments. I choose now. I no longer wait. And if you're done letting someone else's decision define your direction, hit subscribe. Because this space is built for men who aren't looking to be picked. They're building lives that can't be ignored. Number 5, the only revenge is reinvention. So, she left. Maybe she ghosted. Maybe she chose someone else. Maybe she said, "You're a great guy, but..." and disappeared behind that sentence forever. And now, part of you wants payback. Let's be honest. You've thought about it. You've imagined running into her one day and being the best version of yourself. You've pictured her scrolling through your feed and seeing a man who's glowing up, moving on, thriving without her. You want her to feel what you felt. You want her to regret it, and I get it. I really do. But let me tell you something straight, with no sugarcoating. You don't get revenge by trying to hurt her. You get revenge by becoming the man she'll never get access to again. And even better, you don't do it for her. You do it for you. Because the moment you make your growth about making her see, you're still giving her power. You're still orbiting her decisions. You're still moving through the world waiting to be noticed. That's not evolution. That's performance. Real reinvention doesn't need an audience. It's silent. It's intentional. It happens when no one is watching. When you're in the gym on days you don't want to be. When you're rebuilding your finances, your confidence, your discipline, without needing applause. That's the difference between revenge and reinvention. One is emotional, the other is strategic. One is reactionary, the other is rebirth. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In your case, the best revenge is to become nothing like the man who begged to stay. Nothing like the man who waited for a text. Nothing like the version of you that thought love meant never letting go, even when you were clearly being discarded. You don't rise out of spite. You rise out of clarity. Clarity that says, I'm no longer pouring my energy into people who couldn't hold it. I'm no longer seeking validation from the person who didn't value consistency. I'm done building my life around someone else's indecision. That's when things change. Because when you reinvent, it's not just about how you look. It's about how you feel when you walk into a room. It's the stillness in your body, the strength in your eyes, the way you say no without explaining, the way you walk away now, not out of pain, but out of peace. Reinvention isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove. It's not driven by bitterness. It's fueled by standards. And those standards? They're the boundaries that say, I know who I was. I know what I allowed. That man doesn't live here anymore. Because here's the twist no one talks about. When you stop trying to get back at her, when you stop checking if she sees you, misses you, wonders about you, that's when she feels it. Not because you wanted her to, but because your absence has evolved. You're no longer the one that got away. You're the one she could never reach again, even if she tried. And you? You're too busy building, too locked in on your mission, too in love with your new self to ever go back to who you were for her. So don't talk about revenge. Don't fantasize about making her regret it. That energy is small. You're not small anymore. You're strategic. You're steady. You're becoming unrecognizable to the version of you who used to beg to stay. If you're in that chapter, if you've stopped reacting and started rebuilding, drop this in the comments. I don't chase revenge. I become untouchable. And if you're ready to keep reinventing, step by step, in silence and strength, hit subscribe. Because what's coming next? It's not about what she feels. It's about who you're finally becoming. Number 6, control your mind or it controls you. All right, we've talked about the pain, the detachment, the silence. But here's the part nobody really prepares you for: your own mind. You thought the worst part was losing her. But what's really messing you up right now? It's the loop, that mental loop that keeps playing over and over. What did I do wrong? Should I have said something different? Is she thinking about me? Will she ever come back? Sound familiar? Yeah, that's not her hurting you anymore. That's you hurting you. And this is where most men lose the war. Not to her, but to their own untrained mind. See, nobody ever taught us how to master our inner world. We're raised to solve external problems, make money, fix things, win competitions. But when it comes to managing our own thoughts, emotions, spirals, we were never shown how. So when heartbreak hits, or rejection shows up, or silence drags on, your mind doesn't help you. It drags you. It takes the tiniest detail and spins it into a movie. You analyze her last text like it's some hidden prophecy. You reread conversations. You imagine future reunions. You argue with ghosts. And before you know it, you've wasted hours, days, weeks in a fight with thoughts that aren't even real. Let me say that again. They're not real. You're reacting to stories, not facts, not her words, not her actions, but your interpretation of what everything might mean. Marcus Aurelius said, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." And you want to know what most men think about after a woman leaves? Her. Still her. And in doing that, they surrender their minds to something they can no longer control. But you're waking up now. Because the truth is this: if you don't take control of your mind, it will control you. And not just in love, in everything. That voice that tells you you're not good enough, that you'll never find better, that you should just text her one more time just to get closure, that's not intuition. That's attachment in disguise. And unless you get a grip on it, it runs the show. So how do you stop it? Not by fighting every thought, not by yelling, "I don't care anymore" into your pillow, but by doing what Stoics have done for centuries. Observe, pause, and redirect. You don't have to believe every thought that shows up. You don't have to chase every emotion that visits. You simply notice, This is my mind trying to escape discomfort. This is fear. This is fantasy. This is ego. And then you return to stillness, to now, to your breath, to the next action in your day that builds you instead of breaks you. Every time your mind drags you back to her, use that as a rep, like a mental workout. Not, oh no, I'm thinking about her again. But good, another chance to train. Because the more reps you get in redirecting your focus, the more control you regain, the more space you create between what happens and how you respond. That space, that's where peace lives. It's not about forgetting her. It's not about pretending you never cared. It's about deciding that your mind is no longer her playground. It belongs to you now. You run it. You guard it. You protect it like it's your greatest asset. Because it is. So if you're still stuck in the spiral, still letting your thoughts toss you around like waves in a storm, stop. Don't suppress them. Don't shame them. Just stop feeding them and start choosing. What do I want to think today? Who do I want to be despite the noise? That's the shift that separates the reactive man from the grounded one. And if you've made that shift, or you're making it right now, drop this in the comments. I run my mind. It doesn't run me. And if you're ready to build that calm, focused mental edge that can't be shaken by silence, loss, or doubt, hit subscribe. Because everything changes when your mind stops chasing and starts commanding. Number 7, her absence is a gift. At first, her absence feels like punishment. You wake up and she's not there. You check your phone and it's quiet. You replay conversations and wonder where it all fell apart. And you tell yourself, if only she stayed, if only she understood, if only I could fix it. But what if I told you the exact thing you're seeing as a curse is actually the greatest gift you've ever received? Stay with me, because I know it doesn't feel like that. It feels like something's been ripped away, like you've lost something valuable, something irreplaceable. Like the ground beneath you cracked open and left you free-falling with no end in sight. But that feeling isn't grief over her. It's grief over the identity you built around her presence. See, when you love someone deeply, especially as a man who's all in, you start organizing your energy around them, your time, your priorities, your emotions, your future. All slowly start to orbit her. And the more you orbit, the more you forget you had your own center before she arrived. So when she leaves, what you feel is not just heartbreak. It's the emptiness of an identity collapse. But that's the gift. Because now, you finally have space to rebuild yourself. Not as the man she needed, not as the man you pretended to be for love, but as the man you were meant to become all along. Her absence is not your ruin. It's your reset. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." And when nature strips something from you that was never meant to stay, what's left behind is possibility. What you do with that possibility, that's on you. Most men try to fill the gap with distraction, new women, new noise. They treat the void like something to avoid. But the smart ones, the disciplined ones, they see the void as sacred. Because in that silence, you finally get to hear yourself again. Not the version of you filtered through her eyes, but the you that existed before you ever asked to be seen. That version? He's been waiting. Waiting for you to stop negotiating your worth. Waiting for you to stop adjusting your boundaries. Waiting for you to stop making excuses for why you stayed in something that didn't serve you anymore. Now he's got space to rise, because let's be honest, would you have ever evolved this much if she didn't leave? Would you be watching this video, reading these words, lifting yourself out of mental loops and into grounded strength? Probably not. Her absence forced you to meet your real self, the one who's not dependent on affection to feel whole. And that's not bitter. That's beautiful. Because now, every day you wake up without her, you're waking up closer to who you actually are. You're not reacting to her anymore. You're responding to you, to your goals, to your calling, to the standard you're building brick by brick, without needing anyone to clap for you. That's where peace lives. Not in having her back, but in realizing you never needed her to find yourself. Her love might have been a chapter, but your identity is the book, and she's not the author. You are. So stop seeing her absence as loss. Start seeing it as an invitation to become more still, more focused, more powerful than you ever were when she was around. Because a man who knows how to thrive in absence becomes magnetic in presence. And if that truth finally clicked, if you're done crying over space that was always meant to free you, drop this in the comments. Her absence created me. I don't want her back. And if you're building this new version of yourself quietly, with discipline and full awareness, subscribe now. Because what's coming next? It's not about moving on. It's about rising so far. She couldn't find you even if she tried. Number 8, stop worshiping potential. Let's be honest. You didn't fall for who she was. You fell for who you thought she could become. You saw flashes, moments, little signs that maybe, just maybe, if she healed, if she opened up, if she grew, she'd become your dream woman. And so you stayed. Longer than you should have. Tolerated more than you promised yourself you would. Why? Because you weren't loving her. You were loving her potential. And that's the trap. Because when you fall in love with potential, you're not in a relationship. You're in a project. You're building someone in your mind that doesn't even exist in reality yet. And here's the worst part. The longer you stay stuck on who she might be, the more you ignore who she actually is. Her hot and cold behavior, you called it emotional trauma. Her inability to commit, you called it just needing time. Her disrespect, you told yourself she didn't know better. But deep down, you knew. You just didn't want to let go of the fantasy. And that's what kept you hooked. Not her love, not her presence, the unfinished version of her you were trying to complete. You became emotionally invested in who she could be someday. If she just changed, just healed, just woke up. But man, that's not love. That's self-deception. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And here's the outside event you were refusing to accept. She wasn't becoming that person. Not with you, not for you, maybe not ever. And the longer you stayed trying to love her into transformation, the more you abandoned your own. That's what really hurts, right? Not just losing her, but realizing you spent months, maybe years, trying to edit reality so you didn't have to face the truth. But here's the shift. You're done chasing potential. You're done holding on to almost. From now on, you're not falling for promise. You're watching patterns. You're not asking, what could she be? You're asking, what is she consistently showing me right now? Because what she is today, that's who you're choosing. Not the story you wrote for her in your head. You're done trying to raise grown people. Done handing out patience where there should be standards. Done trying to rescue someone who won't even meet you halfway. When you stop worshiping potential, something powerful happens. You start seeing people for who they actually are. And that clarity, it's freedom. You no longer waste energy trying to fix or convince. You let people reveal themselves. And when they do, you decide. Not based on your feelings, but based on facts. That's when your standards level up. That's when your circle changes. That's when peace enters. Not because everyone around you is perfect, but because you stopped lying to yourself. So ask yourself this: did you love her? Or did you love the idea of who she might become if she finally got it together? That question changes everything, because now you're choosing different. You're choosing present reality over future fantasy. And that kind of man, he doesn't fall for potential anymore. He falls for presence. He falls for women who show up real, ready, and rooted. And if that's not who she is, cool. You walk, not because you're cold, but because you've grown. If that shift has happened, or is happening in you right now, drop this in the comments. I don't chase potential, I choose reality. And if you're learning how to let go of the fantasy version of love and lean into your power, focus, and clarity, hit that subscribe button. Because the man you're becoming doesn't settle for almost. He lives in exactly. Number 9. Become a man she can't reach anymore. You want to know what real peace looks like? It's not when she texts, "I miss you." It's not when she finally admits she messed up. It's not even when she sees you glow up and starts lurking your stories again. Real peace is when you realize none of it matters anymore. Because you've become a man she can't reach, even if she tried. And I don't mean that in a petty way. I don't mean blocking her on every app or pretending you're unbothered while secretly hoping she notices. That's not strength. That's ego in disguise. I'm talking about real, grounded, permanent evolution. The kind that makes you invisible to your old patterns. The kind that moves you so far forward. The version of you who used to wait for her is now a stranger, even to yourself. See, when you were chasing her, you gave her access to your emotions, your attention, your time. You were wide open. She could tap in whenever she wanted. And the worst part? You thought that openness was love. You thought being emotionally available meant always being there, even when she wasn't. But now you know better. You're no longer available for breadcrumbs. You're no longer giving full access to someone who treated your consistency like an afterthought. You've stopped letting her energy dictate your direction. That's what changes the game. Because she might come back. They usually do. They circle around, not always to reconnect, but to see if they still can. To test the water, to see if the door's still cracked, to find out if the man they left behind is still waiting. But when you've done the work, she doesn't find the old you. She finds someone unfamiliar, someone calm, someone focused, someone who doesn't flinch at her presence anymore. She sends a "Hey stranger" text. You don't even get a dopamine spike. You glance, smile, and move on. Not because you're trying to play cool, but because you've changed. She can't reach you, not because you're ignoring her, but because you've elevated beyond her level of access. That's when the shift is complete. Because this isn't just about her. It's about every person, every situation, every story you once let pull you out of character. You've learned to protect your peace. You've learned to invest in silence. You've learned to become the kind of man who doesn't need to be seen to be secure. And guess what? That kind of energy? It's rare. It's magnetic. It's dangerous. To anyone who was used to having power over your emotions. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's the mission now. You're no longer chasing love. You're becoming it. You're no longer waiting to be understood. You understand yourself. You're no longer longing for closure. You've closed the chapter and started writing a new one, with better ink and a stronger pen. The version of you that stayed in that old story. He served his purpose. He learned his lesson, but he's gone now. And in his place stands a man who doesn't explain his silence, doesn't justify his distance, doesn't apologize for his glow. You're not punishing her. You're just unreachable. Not out of spite, but out of growth. Because she doesn't have a map to where you're going. And even if she did, she wouldn't recognize the man standing there now. You've outgrown the conversations, the need for approval, the emotional games. And what's left? Peace, purpose, power. She didn't expect this version of you. She thought you'd always be the same, waiting, hoping, chasing. But you walked, you healed, you leveled up quietly. And now, you're no longer an option. You're a memory she can't touch. If that feels like your truth, if you've become that man or are becoming him now, drop this in the comments. She can't reach me. I've risen. And if this is the mindset you're choosing every day, one of clarity, presence, and unshakable strength, thank you for walking this path with me. You already won. Number 10, you already won. Look around, you're still standing. After the silence, after the ghosting, after the late nights of overthinking, the days you couldn't eat, the hours you spent scrolling her social just to feel something, you're still here. And whether you believe it or not, you already won. Not because she came back, not because you made her regret it, not because someone new showed up. You won the moment you stopped needing any of that to feel whole. Because most men stay stuck in a loop forever, chasing the past, waiting for closure, hoping she'll one day realize what she lost. But not you. You did something 99% of guys never do. You faced yourself. You sat in the quiet. You let the pain burn. You didn't run. You didn't numb. You didn't pretend to be okay just to look strong. You felt it all and kept moving. That's what winning actually looks like. It's not flashy. It's not loud. It doesn't always feel like a win when you're in it. But it's the kind of win that changes everything from the inside out. See, this whole time, you thought the victory would be her coming back and saying, "I'm sorry. You were right. You were the one." But that's not real closure. That's just ego validation. The real victory? It's when you look in the mirror and say, "I didn't need her to say a word. I didn't need her to come back. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to come back to myself." And you did. You rebuilt your mind. You regained control of your time. You rediscovered who you were before you wrapped your self-worth around her presence. You stopped asking for peace and became it. You stopped chasing answers and created your own meaning. You stopped begging to be chosen and started choosing you. That's the kind of win that no one can take away. Not her, not the next woman, not your past. Because the prize was never her. It was never the relationship. It was never being good enough for someone else. The prize was you. The you that's self-led. The you that's not shaken by silence. The you that no longer gives your power to someone who couldn't even hold space for it. You're not a man who got over her. You're a man who went deeper into himself and came back stronger. There's a level of freedom in that you can't explain to people who haven't felt it. It's not about coldness. It's not about being numb. It's about clarity. You know who you are now. You know what you'll accept. You know what real love should feel like. Not based on fantasy, but rooted in self-respect. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Your thoughts used to revolve around her. Now they revolve around your future, your peace, your discipline, your vision. You're not running anymore. You're not hoping. You're moving forward, deliberately, without looking back. And that's why you've already won. Because while she may still be figuring herself out, you already decided who you are. While she might one day remember what you were, you've already become someone she'll never get to meet again. That man she walked away from, he grew, he healed, he rose. So don't wait for some dramatic moment where everything makes sense. Don't wait for a reunion, a message, an apology. That's not your finish line. This is. You've arrived, stronger, quieter, focused, And from this point on, you don't chase women. You don't chase answers. You don't chase closure. You simply walk, with full awareness of who you are and what you're building. So if you feel that shift, if you know in your gut that you're not the same man she left, drop this in the comments. I already won. The game is over. Because now, it's not about her anymore. It's about you and the future that's finally yours to create. And that's the truth, my friend. She's not coming back. And that's not your loss. It's your liberation. Because what you've gained from all this, focus, clarity, discipline, and a version of yourself that no longer settles, chases, or breaks over people who never saw your value. If this video helped remind you who you are, or who you're becoming, make sure to hit that subscribe button. This space is for men rebuilding with calm, not chaos. Thank you for watching. Stay steady, stay grounded, and I'll see you tomorrow.